So today I wanted to talk to you about, does dairy cause acne? And for those of you who have been subscribers for a while, I have a kitty down here. He's laying in the sun. They're both so happy. You guys know that if you've been my subscriber for a while that we have been trying very, very hard to test out, does dairy cause acne, etc., etc. So I'm going to be honest, I was not even able to complete this because I did continue to slip up, but I am going to talk about kind of what I found and what I think. And a little bit of background, I'll link you to a blast in the past video where we originally talked about does dairy cause acne, but it's basically the theory that, ooh, there's cat hair everywhere because I'm petting him. That's not the theory. The theory is basically that cows and goats and these animals that produce milk are producing it for their babies, and it's built with growth hormones. That milk is for those growing animals. So it's the idea that these growth hormones are coming from pregnant animals. An animal needs to be pregnant or needs to have just given birth in order to lactate, in order to produce that milk. And farmers like to, have the cow have a baby and then continue to milk it so that way it stays ready to produce that milk and therefore give those hormones. But it is the idea that this milk has a lot of mucus. Sometimes the milk has a lot of pus in it because of inflammation to that area that the cows are being milked. It's the idea that whether it's organic or whether it's regular milk, the cow still has pregnant lady hormones. And it's the idea that when we ingest those hormones, it can cause our bodies to do strange things, and the mucus in there and the congestion can cause the pus of acne. And I do not believe that it applied to eggs, but I think it was talking about yogurt and dairy and stuff like that. So you guys know that I tested this out. Now, before I tested this out, this was like before YouTube, like the era before YouTube, I was a vegetarian for about, 4 to 6 years? I can't even remember now. I think it was 6. And then I was actually vegan for about 3 months. And let me say, when I went vegan for 3 months, I basically really messed up at the end because I am a kind of a cheese addict. I love, love, love cheese. And even a lot of the fake meats that had tofu and soy that I didn't know were messing up my internal body even had a little bit of dairy in them to make them better in certain cases. Or like those, what were they? They were like veggie spinach things and they had like fake meat and cheese. Oh my god, they were so good. But basically I messed up back then. So that was kind of my first experience of going vegan. And then when I did start to get acne, this must have been before YouTube, like early 2010, like when we went to Alaska, I believe. It was, I want to say it was like, because I started YouTube in October of 2010, so it must have been June, July of 2010. Bye, fatty. Where are you going? My fatty. Don't worry, I'm not gonna eat you. No, don't worry. You're not cheesy enough just because you're orange. There you go. Now I'm full of cat hair. Anyways, that must have been like early 2010. But what I noticed there is that I did try to go dairy-free for my acne, and what happened is that I think I was doing around 2 weeks, and I was still eating eggs through all of this. It was no cheese, no milk, no yogurt, things like that. What happened is that after about 2 weeks, I was not seeing improvement. And back then, before I really knew a lot about acne, before I had really taken things into my own hands and tried to learn for myself and research, I just thought, if I tried something and it's not working, it's never going to work. At that time, I didn't understand that you need to do something for a month to 2 months to 3 months to actually get your skin acclimated to see what's going on. So back then, before YouTube, I did it for like 2 weeks and it didn't work. Well, you guys know that I think it was November of last year, I believe, I decided to go dairy-free. And I really, really, really wanted to test this out. Now, the first dairy-free experiment, I want to say that I did for about a month. And what I noticed is that right off the bat, immediately, because I was like logging things in my binder, I was like writing it down and all sorts of stuff, I noticed immediately that I had a lot less mucus up in my nose. Usually when I wake up I have like a little bit of mucus or a little bit of phlegm. Almost 2 to 3 days after I cut out the dairy, that mucus was gone. I didn't notice any more breakouts throughout the first week or even like the first month. I honestly didn't notice any difference other than that phlegm. Now, when it came to like the first week of the second month, this time in like November, I actually noticed a difference. And what it was is that I was still having pimples, I was still having pustules, but they were not as inflamed and they were not as painful. They weren't these big cystic gooey pimples. They were regular pimples that I've, always had like up here a little bit more, but a lot of the cystic jaw acne was not as inflamed. It wasn't as big and bumpy, because you guys know acne can be really, really inflamed, and I'm just naturally a very inflammatory person. I have premature rheumatoid arthritis, which is an inflammatory condition, which means my knee flames up and gets all wet. I'm a wet arthritic, basically. My body is just prone to being inflamed. If I hurt myself, I get inflamed. If I scratch myself, it'll like welt up. So my acne is probably the most inflammatory acne out there, which is just totally not cool. But what I noticed is that when I cut out this dairy, I did notice that it was not as inflamed, and I didn't get these big white pustules. The way I have pimples, I have multiple pimples, but I have noticed differences in the types. And some of them are like those big white heads, and they're very, very liquidy. Like if they pop, they're just complete liquid. There are others where, they pop and they're almost like a form, like they're almost like either a worm or a string, but they actually have like some substance to them, even though they can still kind of piece apart. And then there are others that are almost on the verge of completely solid, and you really have to either get them with a tweezer or something. They're very hard to break down. What I noticed is that these big white pustules that just popped and exploded, those kind of went away for me. I was still having these ones that were kind of white and a little bit grainy, and the ones that were still very white and stiff, but especially down here, that inflammation was gone. So, lo and behold, about a month and a half to 2 months in, I mess up and I start eating dairy again. As you guys know me, I love ice cream, okay? I love bacon, which didn't really count then, but I love ice cream. Yogurt, it's not my favorite, but I do eat it. And then, I don't really care for milk, but it's basically cheese that really, really got me, especially those Sun Chips. I think it was a bag of Sun Chips that I ate, and it had like that Sun Chip cheese powder on it. I was like, ah! And I just went on a dairy binge and ate like grilled cheeses and ice cream and all sorts of dairy delicious treats. But so then, after November, I can't remember when it was, I want to say December or January, but I think it might have been after that, I did a rerun of dairy-free. So I did like dairy-free step 2, because I really wanted to test this out, ideally for 3 to 4 months. Well, dairy step 2, I also kind of messed up, and I tried that, and I think I got through about a month there too. Again, immediately off the bat, my mucus was gone. The thing with dairy step 2, I did not do it as long as my first trial with dairy, so I didn't notice as much as far as my acne went, but I did notice, again, that these pustules down here, a little bit on my chest and a little bit on my back, was much less inflamed, and there were less pustules. There were even less pustules the first time around because I did it longer, but throughout the second time I did notice a little bit, but again, I messed up. So what is the conclusion of dairy-free, you ask? Basically, I messed up twice, and it was very, very, very hard to commit to. Do I think that dairy causes acne? I don't know if dairy causes acne, but I strongly believe that dairy has a correlation to the inflammation that will aggravate acne. And I think that's what it was for me, especially, and with the mucus and the pus production. Definitely think it has a lot to do with that mucus and that pus production. I do think dairy might have a little bit to do with my hormonal or my cystic acne, because I noticed big differences here on my jawline and with those with those really big cystic pimples. But I didn't notice much for kind of like external pimples up here that are normal white pustules, and I didn't notice anything for blackheads. So does dairy cause acne? First off, it is very, very hard for me personally to commit to. If you're really good at cutting out dairy, I say try it, I say go for it. Who knows, it may work really well for you. For me, it was very hard to commit to. So that's the first thing. Second thing, does it actually cause acne? I certainly think it has something to do with inflammation. I don't know if it will clear your acne. I think that if dairy is a culprit to the inflammation, and I think that if dairy is causing a little bit or aggravating that hormonal acne, I think that if you cut out dairy, if you kind of added more fruits or vegetables maybe, and if you just stuck to a good skincare routine and did some stress relief, that you would see a dramatic difference in your acne. If you used some, some right products, you didn't dry yourself out, but you weren't too oily, that's what I think that would be the best. So I'm sorry guys, I don't have all the answers. If it was a perfect world, I would love to be a doctor and take 500 people and be like, we're gonna do a study on does dairy cause acne, and take photos of them every day and look at their pimples and just feed them dairy and non-dairy and see how it goes over a couple months. That would be oh my god, my birthday. But I'm not that fortunate. I don't have a medical degree yet. But does dairy cause acne? This is how kind of it happened to me. This was my experience, and that's what I think. So I honestly was very, very surprised. I didn't really know if it would do anything. I do think it made somewhat of a difference in the inflammation, which affected the acne. So if you have acne and if you eat a ton of dairy, or if you have acne and you're okay with cutting out dairy, I say give it a try. It can't hurt you. Do remember to keep up an intake of calcium and protein, because when you cut out dairy, you might be lacking that calcium and protein, so don't void yourself of nutrition. But do kind of see how it goes and see what you find out. And of course, if you guys can, film a video, post it in a comment, keep a log by your bed, and tell everyone kind of how it went for you, what you noticed. Did you notice the same things as me? Did you notice something different? Because that would really help us and help science to get more qualified information to really be able to understand this better. So I love you guys so much. I hope this video helped you. Thank you for being so patient with me, because this video has taken almost a year for me to get to you. Because I kept on messing up. But I love you guys so much. I did this for you, and I'm actually really excited to kind of think about, I don't know, the causes and effects. I don't know, maybe I'm like a weird old scientist at heart. I don't know. I really liked the planets in 8th grade though. That like made my day. And CSI in Miss Binko's class, that was like the bomb.com of my school year. Anyways, I love you guys so much. This video is going to end now, and I can't wait to talk to you all again soon tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.